And this last trip, they invited me to the cockpit. And I asked the plane commander, what is your true airspeed? And he said, 455 knots. And I said, I used to tool around down there to 135. And then PBY went at true airspeed of 105. But we got to Kwajalein, no, to Wake, and we had dinner, and we went to the bar, and there was an aquarium, and this aquarium had tropical fish, pretty little fish. And we sat there and had a couple of drinks amongst the fish. And I asked the plane commander, the other PBY, what he'd do if he lost an engine between Wake and Kwajalein, big hop, long hop, for over the water speed of 80 knots. You had to carry a lot of fuel. So he said, well, let's go over the single engine thing. So we went over the single engine. And I said, well, I'll be on 142.74 and we'll talk back on VHF. So the next morning it was no straights, IFR. So we found IFR for Kwajalein. And we went first. And after 1,000 feet, we broke into the clear, and that was fine, except that I couldn't see the whitecaps to get drift. So I used the forecast winds, which were always wrong.
Yeah.
The forecast winds are always wrong. So I couldn't get a drift, so I just had to do deadline. And at the end of the first hour, I took a sunline. With the sunline, of course, that gave me a vertical, and at least I knew what my speed over the water was. I didn't know where I was. So about 2 or 3 hours out, the guy said, I've got a rough running engine. And I said, well, remember last night what you're going to do? He says, yeah, I'm going to, how goes it says, I'm too heavy. If I can't stop it, sure. He said, the how goes it says I'm too heavy. And I'm going to jettison some gasoline. So
find somebody and
anything but gas. The navigator.
That reminds me of another story. I'm full of the good stories. But anyway, he said, I'm going to jettison some gasoline. And in a few minutes I called back on the VHF and I couldn't raise it. I couldn't, it was nothing. And he never answered. And so I called overseas radio and I said, the guy doesn't answer. He said, well, you keep on going, don't go back. So we kept on going. We got to Kwajalein. Nobody ever heard from him. And so we waited there a couple of days, and then they told us to keep on going to Guam and the Philippines and up to Chai Formosa. So we went up to Chai Formosa and they gave us a big gambay party. The Chinese, hey, you know what a gambay party is?
They're doing, yes.
Well, they had a Chinese major tend to me, and they had a Chinese captain tend to the pilot, and then our 2 enlisted radiomen and plane captain, they had equal pay grade to take care of them. And that night they gave us a wonderful gambay party, and gambay is the girl pours your drink out, and the guy looks at you and he says, Gambay, which means you're down the hatch.
Well, I've never done nothing like that.
And the world started going around, and I said to this major, who spoke English very well, what do you do? What do you say when you can't take that Gambay? He said, well, you point to your stomach. I still remember the word, sway knee.
Sway knee.
Sway knee. So I put it on my stomach and I said, sway knee. And so then we started eating and had the rest of the evening. Well, then the next morning they poured us in a plane and took us up to Tachikawa. And then we got in a big transport. It looked like a B-29. It took us, the flight plan was to Midway, I think. And about 10 o'clock at night, I told one of the Air Force stewards that I'd like to look in the cockpit. And at that time, back in 1954, 55, was like a silver lease meant something.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, sir. So he took me up to the cockpit, opened the door, I looked in, I saw the navigator, the second lieutenant. He was taking four lines of position, start fixes, and I looked at his paper and it was real good. He'd take every hour, and he was making what they call a no-win plot. And then I looked over here, there was a big panel, and gasoline, and BMEP, and RPMs, and all that, and the plane captain was looking at this, and he was also screwing the automatic pilot. And I looked up in the left seat, there was nobody. And I looked up here, there was somebody in the rack up there. That was the plane commander.
Taking a snooze.
I looked on the right side, and the co-pilot had a blanket on, and he was asleep.
Like Northwest Airlines.
That was good. Good one, Steve. That was good.
I want you to take a picture of these guys. And the plane captain was screwing the automatic pilot, and the navigator was telling the plane